The story you're about to hear is a compilation of documented true facts about historical characters, events, or locations. Please sit back and listen as I narrate this story to you. Billy the Kid, born Henry McCarty, on September 17 or November 23, 1859, was an Irish-American outlaw and gunfighter of the American Old West who killed 8 men before he was shot and killed at the age of 21. He was also known by the pseudonym William H. Bonney. Little is known about Billy's early years, but it is thought that his father died or abandoned the family when he was a child and that he was orphaned at the age of 15 when his mother died of tuberculosis. He and his brother were soon involved in petty theft. Billy wore a signature sugarloaf sombrero hat with a wide decorative band and had a lean build, sandy blonde hair, and blue eyes. He had a quixotic disposition that he used to great effect during his heists and robberies, as he could be charming and friendly one moment and outraged and brutal the next. At the age of 14, Billy was forced to find work in a hotel washing dishes and waiting tables at the restaurant. Billy was said to be very friendly and impressed the boss, to whom he boasted that he was the only kid who had ever worked for him who had never stolen anything. At the age of 16, he was arrested for stealing food in late 1875. He was arrested again 10 days later after robbing a Chinese laundry, but he escaped shortly after. He crossed into Arizona Territory from New Mexico Territory, making him both an outlaw and a federal fugitive. In 1877, he started referring to himself as William H. Bonney. Billy became a wanted man in Arizona after murdering a blacksmith during an altercation in August 1877. The civilian blacksmith at the camp, Frank Wendy Cahill, took pleasure in bullying young Billy. On August 17, Cahill attacked Billy after a verbal exchange and threw him to the ground. Billy retaliated by drawing his gun and shooting Cahill, who died the next day. Billy was in custody at the camp's guardhouse, but escaped before the local marshal arrived. Billy then showed up at High School Jones' house in Pecos Valley, New Mexico, on the run once more. Billy's horse had been stolen by the Apaches, forcing him to walk several miles to the nearest village to Mrs. Jones' home. She nursed the nearly dead young man back to health. Billy formed a close bond with the Jones family, and one of their horses was given to him. After becoming an outlaw and being unable to find honest jobs, Billy met up with Jesse Evans, the leader of a group of rustlers known as the Boys. Billy had nowhere else to go, and being alone in the violent and lawless territory was suicide, so he reluctantly joined the gang. On February 18, 1878, he became involved in the notorious Lincoln County War, in which his newest friend and boss, John Tunstall, was killed. The murder had a profound impact on Billy the Kid, who said that Tunstall was one of the few men who treated him like he was free-born and white. On April 1, 1878, Billy, now a member of the Regulators, would exact vengeance on the deputy who had murdered his friend, as well as another deputy and the county sheriff, William Brady. Billy went into hiding now that he was much more wanted than before, but he soon began stealing livestock from white ranchers and the Apache on the Mescalero Reservation. Lew Wallace, a former Union general, was appointed as the new territorial governor of New Mexico in the fall of 1878. Wallace declared an amnesty for any man involved in the Lincoln County War who was not already under trial in order to bring peace to Lincoln County. Billy was, of course, under several indictments, some of which unrelated to the Lincoln County War, but Wallace was fascinated by rumors that Billy was willing to surrender himself and testify against other combatants if amnesty could be granted to him. In March of 1879, Wallace and Billy met to discuss the possibility of a deal. True to form, Billy greeted the governor with a revolver in one hand and a Winchester rifle in the other. After several days to think the issue over, Billy agreed to testify in return for an amnesty. Billy agreed to a show arrest and a brief stay in prison until the end of his jury testimony as part of the deal. Despite the fact that Billy's testimony assisted in the indictment of one of the House faction's most influential figures, John Dolan, the district attorney refused Wallace's order to release Billy after he testified. Billy, on the other hand, was a trained escape artist and managed to free himself from his handcuffs and escaped. He spent the next year in Fort Sumner on the Pecos River, where he made a fateful friendship with a local bartender named Pat Garrett, who later became the sheriff of Lincoln County. Garrett was charged as sheriff with apprehending his friend Henry McCarty, who had become known as Billy the Boy by this point. At about the same time, Billy had formed a gang referred to as the Rustlers, or simply Billy the Kid's gang, who survived by stealing and rustling as he did before. The core members of the gang were Tom O'Folliard, Charlie Bowdre, Tom Pickett, Billy the Kid, Dirty Dave Rudabaugh, and Billy Wilson. By the fall of 1880, Billy was still trying to convince the governor of a pardon, although continuing his outlaw activities. During this time, his notoriety with newspapers increased and they dubbed him Billy the Kid and the most important outlaw of New Mexico. On November 30, 1880, Billy the Kid's gang, David Anderson, also known as Billy Wilson, and Dirty Dave Rudabaugh rode into White Oaks, New Mexico, and ran into Deputy Sheriff James Redman. Taking shots at the deputy, Redman hid behind a saloon as several local citizens ran into the street chasing the fugitives out of town. On December 15, 1880, Governor Wallace put a $500 reward on Billy's head, but that was not to last. On December 19, 1880, Billy the Kid, Billy Wilson, Rudabaugh, Tom O'Folliard, Charlie Bowdre, and Tom Pickett rode tiredly into Fort Sumner, New Mexico, trailed by Garrett's posse, who had taken refuge in an old post-hospital house. As Garrett ordered the outlaws to halt, Pat Garrett, Lon Chambers, and others leapt from cover. However, several of the posse members didn't wait for the outlaws to respond to Garrett's demand, instead opening fire on Pickett and O'Folliard, who were riding in front. Though Pickett survived to escape, O'Folliard lay dead in the dusty street. Rudabaugh's horse caught a bullet and collapsed. Rudabaugh managed to jump onto Wilson's horse and he and the other outlaws escaped, holing up in an abandoned cabin near Stinking Springs, New Mexico. Garrett's posse quickly tracked down the outlaws and surrounded their hideout. Billy, Charlie Bowdre, Dave Rudabaugh, Tom Pickett, and Billy Wilson were among those who entered the home. Bowdre was shot in the chest as he walked through an open window. The siege lasted until Rudabaugh waved a white flag and the bandits surrendered the next day. Billy the Kid and his gang of rustlers were captured on December 23, 1880. Billy was first taken to a jail in Las Vegas, New Mexico, then to Santa Fe, and eventually to Miscelia. Billy was accused of murdering Sheriff William Brady and sentenced to death by Judge Warren Bristol in his April trial, which lasted exactly 1 day. His execution date was set for May 13th, and he was transported to Lincoln to await it. Before and after the Lincoln County War trial, he was guarded by James Bell and Robert Ollinger on the top floor of the building formerly known as the House. While Garrett was out of town, Billy managed to escape and kill both of his guards on April 28th. It's unclear how Billy did it, but it's generally assumed that a friend or Regulator sympathizer left a gun in the privy that one of the guards accompanied Billy to on a regular basis. After shooting Deputy Bell with a pistol, Billy stole Ollinger's 10-gauge double-barrel shotgun and waited for Ollinger by the window in the room he was being held in. Ollinger obliged by running immediately from the hotel upon hearing the shots. When he was directly under the window of the courthouse, he heard his prisoner say, "Hello, Bob." Ollinger then looked up and saw the kid gun in hand. It was the last thing he ever saw as Billy blasted him with his own shotgun, killing him instantly. This would be, however, Billy's last escape. When Pat Garrett was questioning Billy's friend, Peter Maxwell, on July 14, 1881, in Maxwell's darkened bedroom in Old Fort Sumner, Billy unexpectedly entered the room. The kid didn't recognize Garrett in the poor lighting conditions and asked, "Who is it? Who is it?" in Spanish, to which Garrett responded with 2 shots from his revolver, the first striking Billy's heart. Billy the Kid remains one of the most notorious figures from the era, whose life and likeness have been frequently dramatized in Western popular culture. Hey everyone! I just wanted to express how grateful I am that you took time out of your day to listen to my narration. This is Nikki of Twysted Mind, and I'd like to wish you a wonderful rest of your day.
Salamat.